What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And today we are going over Travis Hunter being a full-time cornerback now and being used on gadget plays on offense. Now, you guys may be confused. You guys know me as a college football podcast. Why are we talking about Travis Hunter in year two? There's a couple of reasons why I really wanted to make a video on this topic. First off, obviously, Travis Hunter had an historic college career. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. He was the only guy to be able to play on both sides all the time in college football history. So, again, he's a huge figure in our sport. The other reason why I wanted to talk about Travis Hunter, because we had multiple videos at this time last year during the NFL draft and the offseason with strong opinions on how I believe Jacksonville should use Travis Hunter. So, again, he's a guy that we were talking about a lot, that I was very passionate about how I think the Jaguars should use him. And yesterday we found out, or a couple days ago, we found out that they're using him as a full-time cornerback and they're sprinkling him on offense. If you guys know me, this is exactly how I wanted them to use Travis Hunter. Again, if you don't believe me, you could go back at this time last year. I was saying this consistently. It's the only way to use him. But before we get into all that, we're going to talk about how we got here with Travis Hunter. So obviously the Jaguars gave up a lot to acquire Travis Hunter. To only move up 3 spots, they had to give up their first, obviously, in that year, another first, a second. It was a huge package. Now, a lot of people are dwelling on that package. I would just say what has happened, and I don't even know if Jaguars necessarily lost that trait. Like, Travis Hunter is a premier athlete. I think he could be a great NFL player and all-pro player on one of these sides. Like, this guy is a unicorn. I wasn't a huge fan of this deal because, again, you gave up a lot for kind of an unknown how to use this type of person. And I did think with Travis Hunter, there was going to be a lot to go along with it because I do feel like, again, post game, a lot of times, they're going to be asking questions like, why didn't you use him here? Why didn't you use him here? I do believe now using him as a full-time cornerback and then using him on gadget plays is kind of going to eliminate those questions because he's a cornerback. That's what he is. I absolutely love that the Jacksonville Jaguars did this. I think this is the only way the Jacksonville Jaguars could have went. And I said this at this time last year. Why I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars could have only went with Travis Hunter being a full-time cornerback, sprinkling him on gadget plays, because you can't come in and out as a secondary player. Secondary players outside of offensive linemen have the least sub positions in all of football. That's a position of rhythm and feel. You have to stay in every single play, and you also have to have chemistry with your fellow secondary players. Not only that, I also believe it's perfect that they did this because, one, I do think it's way harder to get an elite corner than an elite receiver. We see how many receivers are getting paid $30+ million. But Travis Hunter, with his wide receiver instincts, I believe can develop into an all-pro corner. And then the other reason I really like this is because for the Jacksonville Jaguars specifically, their receiver room is much stronger than their secondary. Again, they lost some parts in their secondary, where in their receiver room, they have Brian Thomas Jr., who's an absolute X. They have Jacoby Myers, who they acquired in the middle of the season last year. And then they also have Parker Washington that came on at the end of last year that they're looking to extend. So for all these reasons, it is absolutely perfect that they are deciding to use Travis Hunter as a full-time corner. My biggest gripe with the Jacksonville Jaguars, them trading up for the pick, isn't necessarily that they gave up all of it, because like I said, Travis Hunter's a unicorn. You could use him in a variety of different ways, obviously still on offense in these limited plays. The problem I have with it is, again, I said all last year he should be a full-time corner using gadget plays. But it seemed like they had, I don't even know how to describe it. They had the initiative and they really wanted to go up and get him, but it seemed like when it was time to figure out how to use him, they had absolutely no idea how to use him. I thought last year was absolutely horrible because when you look at the first 3, 4, 5 games last year, they were using him in ridiculous splits. We saw times where he was 70% on offense, 30% on defense. Then it was flipped around the other way. The only way you could develop a player like Travis Hunter, a player that could do multiple things on the football field, I understand he mastered both sides in college, but you have to be primarily developed at one position first in the NFL, and then you could develop at the other position. You could be sprinkled in, but you have to be getting consistent reps at one position because it is so hard to translate from college to the NFL at a position. You cannot be splitting reps at positions. It cannot happen. That's why I don't want to put a limit on what Travis Hunter can do in the NFL because I think he could play both sides at a significant rate. Do I think he's going to be able to play both sides fully every single snap? No. There's just absolutely no way that could happen with the athletes in the NFL. It was able to happen in Colorado. It cannot happen in the NFL. But I do think there's a point, like, again, if they stick to this trajectory of playing him full time at cornerback and sprinkling him on offense, and again, they could use him in simple concepts on offense. That's why it's such a big deal to me. Why, again, like I said, you can't be subbed in as a secondary player, but on offense, we see all the time running backs, tight ends, receivers that are primarily used on third down, fourth down, red zone situations in simple concepts. It's much easier to ease you in as a receiver. But going back to what I was saying, if he develops as a full time cornerback, I do believe there is a pathway 3, 4 years down the line from now where he gets more and more offensive workload. And he could be, a guy that plays 100% at corner and maybe like 40% on offense. I do think there's a way where he could be very, very effective and be used as a unicorn. Now, it all depends on, again, the development process. And like I said, they gave up a lot for Travis Hunter, but I do think he's his premier athlete. And I do think, again, it was one of those unique situations where nobody really knew how to use him because we never had this example of anybody in football. Again, we've seen people play both sides, Deion Sanders later in his career with the Cowboys, but like he was sprinkled in a little bit, but we never seen a guy coming out of college that was playing full time really on both sides like that. So it definitely is a unique situation. I love that they went cornerback and then sprinkling him at receiver because, again, like I said, a cornerback is a position where you need feel and rhythm. You can't be subbed in at that position. Where a receiver, there could be simple concept for you and you could be eased in certain plays and be used as a gadget guy. And then, like I said, they are so deep in their receiving room in Jacksonville, and they're lacking a little bit in their secondary. And also, if you have an elite cornerback, it is much more valuable than an elite receiver. They're much more harder to come by all means, this was the right move by Jacksonville and Liam Cohen. I think Jacksonville's future is extremely bright. Obviously, it is very impressive what Liam Cohen did last year with Trevor Lawrence. And then they really got hot right after Travis Hunter got hurt. So I get it. They don't have a first round pick this year, but it's almost like Travis Hunter is your first round pick because, like I said, they didn't really know how to use him last year. And as soon as they got hot, that was when he was hurt. So he's getting added on to this already really great football team. I think Jackson Jaguars in a phenomenal spot, and I think they made the right move with Travis Hunter for sure. Drop down below in the comments what you think of this whole situation with Travis Hunter and Jacksonville. Do you think they made the right move? Would you like to see Travis Hunter a little more on offense? Also, another thing, do you think Jacksonville kind of tipped their hand a little bit by saying this early? I personally do not because I think, again, everything's going to come out in practice, whether it's with beat reporters, regular reporters, whatever. When Travis Hunter is getting more reps, all of his reps on defense in practice, everybody's going to know anyway where he's playing. Again, I could see his workload maybe on offense ramping up a little bit later in the season too when you see his timing with Trevor Lawrence really get down and everything. But again, like I said, drop down below in the comments. What do you think of this? Do you think this was the right move with Travis Hunter? Do you think the Jaguars regret making this trade, or do you think Travis Hunter could really fulfill his potential and the Jaguars could have won this trade with the Browns? That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are out.